with staff from the Endangered Species Program in New Jersey, getting ready to ban 3 bald eagle chicks from a nest that's been active for about 7 years. This is one of 170 nests throughout the state, and just in the last 30 years the bald eagle has made an amazing comeback. In the early 1980s, we were down to the last eagle's nest in New Jersey, down in Bear Swamp East in Cumberland County, and since that time, as a result of the efforts of the Endangered Species Program, the eagles have made a dramatic comeback. The problem with the eagles had been that because of the bioaccumulation of DDT in their fatty tissues, they were laying eggs that were too thin to withstand incubation. So the first step was to take the eggs from the last nest, incubate them in a laboratory, put plaster of Paris eggs in the nest that the parents would sit on, and then to bring the live hatched eagles back. The second step was really to work on using DEP's land use authority to protect eagle habitat and to use the open space acquisition program to protect the areas where eagles needed to have habitat. We also were able to, over the years, gradually start to clean up the environment. DDT was banned, so gradually the DDT worked its way through the environment, and the eagles started laying eggs that they could actually incubate without cracking the shells. We had similar success stories with peregrine falcons and with ospreys. So now we're up to 170 nests, which has really kind of restored the eagle to its kind of rightful place at the top of the food chain, a place here like Duke Farms. So we've got a group of people who are about to witness something truly special. Mick Vallant from the Endangered Species Program is about to climb this tree, and he will bring the eagle chicks down one at a time, and they will be banded and weighed and measured. You've seen the amazing growth rate of the eagles. They're now the size of kind of like small ducks, and they're starting to grow their flight feathers. The eagles will be fledging in the next month or so. So we're very excited here at Duke Farms because having the eagles here is a sign that we're definitely doing something right, and the habitat quality is good. And the fact that there are 3 chicks in the nest, all of whom have survived, is also a very good indication that the food source here is very good. So if you've been watching, you've been seeing the fish and the turtles and the other things that the eagles have been bringing to the nest. I think there's actually an eel in the nest right now. That's a really good sign. It means that the Raritan is becoming cleaner. The lakes at Duke Farms are a good food source for the eagles. And, so if you're an eagle, this is kind of like heaven. And for an urban state like New Jersey, that's amazing. The fact that we have 170 nests now throughout the state, even in urban areas like Petty's Island, right offshore of Camden in the Delaware River, is really a good sign that all of the programs that we put into place since the first Earth Day in 1970 are really providing benefits. The environment is being cleaned up. It's benefiting endangered species like the eagles, but these species are also indicator species and showing that the environment is becoming cleaner for human beings as well. So there's a really nice kind of connection between endangered species and human health. One of the remaining challenges is that this program, you're seeing staff from the Endangered Species Program here today, gets no budgetary dollars in New Jersey. It's completely supported by the tax checkoff. You can designate part of your taxes for the Endangered Species Fund, or you can buy conserved wildlife license plates, and part of that money goes to support this program. So it's absolutely essential that we as citizens in New Jersey help support this program. There's also a special foundation that was set up called the Conserved Wildlife Foundation, which raises money for the Endangered Species Program. They have events, and you can become a member of the foundation. So I would encourage people to do that. If you like watching these eagle chicks, there's a lot more
That big.
Yeah. This one's a little bit. Yeah.
We'll be running from the D series into the E series.
Oh, no complaints.
Ella Cruz is greatly appreciated.
Are you already picking tips?
Off of her.
So
Good
how,
with that.
how big a database do you have from past bandits? Are you able to count from most of the, or a good percentage of the banded birds?
Account like
Well,
recoveries?
Recoveries or just seeing them again?
It's typically small. I think I looked at it recently, and I think it was in the area of 15% where we had
No, that's not bad.
some recovery, and
Yeah.
the bird was found injured or dead or just recited. And with people using good cameras now, we're actually starting to get some resightings of these color marked birds. So.
Now, one Duke Farms banded eagle was resighted recently, right?
Down in Conowingo and Maryland, I think.
Oh, that one, yeah. And that's really exciting when we can get a band read, on a bird.
So people keep asking us if these chicks will kind of pattern on this area and if it's likely that they'll come back to nest here. I never quite know how to answer that.
Yeah, well, one thing we can say is that most eagles nesting in New Jersey are green banded, so they originated from New Jersey. And that's probably the answer. Now, I also seem to see some difference between North Jersey and South Jersey. So, and that may be because North Jersey birds are associating with, Delaware River, New York State, so sort of that more northern area. And South Jersey eagles might be associated more with Chesapeake Bay population.
So we could expect them to kind of identify
And we're
within
right in the
regions.
middle. We're right in the middle of New Jersey, and so I just say the region, and I can't even say central New Jersey, although these birds might be responsible for this more and more nests popping up in central Jersey along the Raritan, and so we definitely are seeing a growth spurt in central and north New Jersey.
And do you think we're getting anywhere close to kind of saturation point for nesting habitat?
They keep teaching us things. Every year it's something new because they're using habitats that we never would have predicted.
Like Betty's Island and Kramer Hill?
Well, Brick Township cell tower.
Right.
They were in Woodbridge area and Metuchen area, and so they're picking out these areas that it's something new because they're using habitats that we never would have predicted.
Like Betty's Island and Kramer Hill?
Well, Brick Township cell tower.
Right.
They were in Woodbridge area and Metuchen area, and so they're picking out these areas that they're probably very keyed in on the very big open waters.
Like food sources.
Right. So the Raritan Bay, the big tributaries of the Raritan. I think that's what's driving it, and the nest trees they're finding can be sort of marginal or can be well protected, but I think they're keying in on big water areas.
Yeah. Is there any particular species of tree that they look for? We've got sycamore here, and a lot of big sycamores in the floodplain here.
Yeah, they look for big, and Because they like to nest near water, they're often in sycamores, cottonwoods. In the rest of the areas, they often just choose the biggest pine, a pine that's above the canopy. And pines tend to have a good structure for supporting a nest. A lot of deciduous trees, it's really better for the nest long term if it's really close to the stem of the tree. This one could be tricky. Yeah, this is going to be tricky for Mick to climb because of the way it's
To get around it.
It's out a little bit, and he needs to have a branch that is over the nest that he's going to be pulling himself up.
So we're at 2,742 acres here. Is it realistic to think that at some point there'll be more than one eagle nest here? There is a lot of contiguous preserved land in the Sourlands and along the river. There's a nice greenway along the river. But people keep asking us if we expect some of our chicks to come back and make their own nests here.
Well, Mom and Dad aren't going to be friendly to the chicks once they're adults. The closest we have them nesting is about a mile. Some nests a little under a mile, and I think it really depends on the food source, what the area can support.
Well, we've got the lakes here, and we've got the river, and
a lot of waterfowl.
Yeah.
It's a great area, and there's already more nests popping up along the Raritan. I'll tell you, in South Jersey, where we have the highest density, in Cumberland and Salem counties, we have eagles fighting each other now. And when eagles fight each other over territories, they're out to do serious damage, and they can really hurt each other.
But ironically, that's probably a good sign, too, that the population density is high
strange,
enough that they're competing for habitat.
Yeah.
That would not have happened 30 years ago.
Exactly, we couldn't have imagined that. But yes, they're fighting, and they can really hurt each other. So, but yeah, it is a. I guess it's the downside of a good story.
So we've obviously come a long way since the time when, back in the 80s, the shells were too thin to withstand incubation. You had to climb the tree twice, once to take the egg out, then to bring the live chicks back that were hatched in the laboratory.
Right.
So that tells me that the environment's getting cleaner. I mean, the Raritan is demonstrably cleaner than it was.
Right.
That's obviously a good sign. The department has been working with responsible parties and removing a lot of dams. So the fish spawning, the naturalist fish runs are coming back. So that's got to be a good food source for the eagles.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we have eagles. We have several eagle nests now in Bergen County. Very urban area, and typically has had a terrible history of pollution. But they're coming back there, and they're producing chicks. So,
is there any way of knowing what the historic habitat range was for eagles in New Jersey?
I just don't think the data's there. I don't think there's good enough. See, before DDT became a problem for eagle reproduction, there was a lot of heavy persecution of eagles. So their populations were already dropped down by just illegal shooting. And then DDT came along, and so it was a double whammy.
So that was almost the final straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
We're down to one nesting pair.
Down to one pair in New Jersey, and it's pretty amazing to think that we went from 1 to 170. And,
well, that's got to feel good. I mean, you don't always get victories like that when you're dealing with endangered species.
Rarely get victories like that. Yeah.
We've had that with eagles and ospreys.
Yeah, I think it's just an amazing story that involves a lot of. I mean, it's the environmental cleanup. It's protecting the birds, trying to maintain their habitat while they're absent, and then of course dealing with the outright pollution and persecution. So a lot of things had to happen. But once you free up, once you release all those threats from the birds, their biology just went into gear and took over.
Does it matter that eagles were downlisted on the federal list? They're still a listed species in New Jersey. Does that hurt the efforts in New Jersey at all?
No, I don't think so. And partly because the bald eagle is the one species that, even though it was federally delisted, taken off the endangered species list, it has the extra protection and the remaining protection of the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act. No other species that typically gets delisted also still has federal protection. So of that degree. So that's making a big difference, that there's still some federal oversight and some minimal protection buffers on that.
He's getting there. So how do you decide what to ban now? with 170 active nests, you can't possibly hope to ban all of those.
No, but you know, we set out sort of a hopeful schedule, basically just tracking out when a nest is going to be 6 weeks of age. So we have to know the age. We have to know that the tree is climbable. And with some of the flooding this year, two things happened. Some nests became inaccessible because they're flooded, and the rain actually caused a lot of failures this year. So we had nests on our schedule that things just started dropping off. But we do have to be pretty selective.
But here we know exactly when the eggs were laid because we have the Eagle Cam on it, so you know when 6 weeks is.
I made it easy.
Yeah, it certainly did. We have lots of people watching the Eagle Cam.
Right.
telling
We
us
have
when it's
885 people now watching.
yeah. On the live feed.
Live feed, yeah.
And I think we're approaching 1 million people viewing the Eagle Cam.
Yeah.
So, yeah, people love to watch the eagles.
This is a great camp. I mean, even biologists are learning a lot from watching the behavior.
It was really helpful to be able to redo the camera
Yeah.
and do a little bit of trimming because we have a really nice view of the nest now.
Yeah.
So there you go. Let's go.
So we've zoomed out so they can see people on the ground or not? They can just see the nest.
They just see the nest. There isn't really much zoom. This is an iPhone 5S, so and when you're in Ustream, you can't really zoom. But they can see the nest.
You
and
mean,
they can
did you
see
replace that feed with this one?
No. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, both the feeds are still on. Yep.
Both feeds?
Yep, both feeds are on now.
So when you bring the eagles down, they'll be able
Right.
to see the nest of the Eagle Cam as well as what's going on the ground.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
please.
Okay.
If you ever, like some of you, if you want to set up a group of funders or school kids or VIPs or whatever in the classroom, we'll do live
Yeah.
feed over there.
Right,
We'd be happy to do that for you. But Kathy, this takes me back 30 years to walking at the
Can you
Great Wall.
imagine? Can you imagine 30 years ago? We
Well-
were like one nest and we were like holding it so carefully. And
This is why I do what I do. I mean, you guys took me to the nest in early 80s. I decided I'd
The viewers look carefully. They can see the adults circling.
practice law. I wanted to do this kind of stuff.
it's,
So how is he's going to go through that crotch and then over the top?
he's a little worried about that
Because they're on the other side of the nest.
because they're always going to be on the far side and he has to be tied into something that's not going to pull him
Watch your head, Robert.
away from the nest. So,
And there's not really anything above that.
right, that's I think what he's worried about. He might have to, he's got a boat hook there, and he might have to use that to get a rope on that.
Yeah.
Whatever branch is on the other side, so the rope may be sort of running kind of close. He does have one.
So we have the three chicks this year, and the one was born 2 days later. Obviously, the runt of the litter, but he seems to be holding its
Yeah,
own.
I
He's
saw
not
that.
quite as big, but he seems to be doing fine, he or she. And I'm assuming that's a good indication that it's a good food source here.
Yeah.
So as he's competing, they're bringing enough
He was
food.
able, right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And I was reading the comments, I could see people were worried. Number three is never going to get as much until he gets to it. As long as he can get through the first couple of weeks, then he'll be able to hang on. But
So how rare is that the three survive? That
I don't
unusual?
know. I think we see three at maybe 10% of nests now.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's a really good sign.
yeah. And sometimes number three is, looks like 2 weeks younger than the others. So he actually looked up. I checked them out.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And even like in the last week or two, he's catching up.
Right.
I mean, when you see him lined up, you can pick him out.
Yeah.
He's a little bit small, but he doesn't look.
Well,
like
if
the
we
runt he
know
was.
who number three is, he'll be easier to zero.
And can you sex the birds this early?
So, No, no.
Any questions from people?
Well, you want to go here?
Yeah, while he's up there, we could take some questions.
Right here, in the next 5 minutes. Sure. When we had the person, and what Erica was so cool, and right on your job is to come home, and then you're basically trying to do
To the adults circling.
Drawing about 10 cc's of blood. It looks like a large amount. It's 1 tube full, and for their size, it's a small amount of what could safely be taken. So we'll take 10 cc's of blood, and we are doing that to collect different, hopefully run some studies down the future. Right now, most of it's getting banked because it all depends on availability of funding. So when we get funding, then this main samples or main tests that we're running is we want to look for environmental contaminants. As top of the food chain, the eagles are really good monitors for the environmental health. Because everything any kind of environmental toxins accumulate in them and in their food items and then in them eventually. So we're going to look for heavy metals, hopefully things like lead, mercury, arsenic that are some naturally occurring in the environment, but also as man-made waste products. Pesticides, we still see remnants of DDT that's accumulated in the food chain. It's a very short half-life or long half-life, so it stays around a while. PCBs, other environmental. We still see remnants of DDT that's accumulated in the food chain. It's a very short half-life or long half-life, so it stays around a while. PCBs, other environmental contaminants like that, pesticides and such. We are this year taking a small sample aliquot from that we're going to send to a researcher who's interested in following the genetics of eagles. And so he's actually going to be able to, and it will be interesting because we know this, at least one of the parents from this nest, and we have banked a sample from that bird, and so we'll be able to see the genetic connection. And then we take a very small test from that. We'll run what's called a packed cell volume and total solids, which just kind of give us a little window of health on each bird.
Hold up. Let's go.
Okay, he's got that going on. It's getting tricky up there. So, once we get our blood sample taken, we'll do some measurements on the bird. The measurements, even at this age, will be able to tell us whether it's a male or a female.
Okay.
And then we'll, once the measurements are done, we'll put bands on the bird. So they'll each get a permanent ID band. One recovered, we'll know exactly who it is. We'll also have permission to put a second band on. So every bird that's banded in New Jersey, every eagle, has a green identification band. And this is larger numbers. Now with better optics on both binoculars and even the camera lenses, we're actually measurements. It's been long tried and true studies. We can get pretty accurate on the measurements. This year, because we are doing the genetics testing, we are able to sex them as well through that blood sample. So we'll have a definite confirmation once we get those results back. But that testing is quite expensive. And if we do get any funding for testing, we would rather have it go to environmental contaminants than for determining gender. But, you know, like I said, this case, we have a researcher who's doing the genetics for no cost to us as part of his research grant. So.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Okay.
The tag team in you.
That's right.
Do they mate?
Oh, mate for life. Actually, yeah, they, like most birds, at least a large number of bird species, they do mate for life, which means until something happens to one of them.
Right.
They don't then. Actually, I think eagles go through a very short mourning period, if anything, because we've seen an adult at one nest get. If anything, because we've seen an adult at one nest get killed or have something happen to it, and within 48 hours usually there's another eagle there, which in a way is a great testimony to the number of birds we have in New Jersey, that we now have birds that are kind of waiting in the wings for an available nest.
Cool.
Yeah, there's still a lot of them.
I sort of worked with Navy last year. And
Oh yeah, I met her a couple times. Yeah.
we got to live at Leslie Battalion, and there's an osprey nest. Right next to the little cabin she stayed in. We got to see the place.
Yes, nice girl.
The last 20 years, she made fun of me for my pictures of my old
I might have to keep me in for tackle with my paranoia, and that'll probably be fine. The first one.
Do you have something that you can read something that was different? So which was the Old Testament? Before the stand or the
It's brave.
Yes, the end of this contract. Yes. We're trying to recruit volunteers.
There's about 900 people watching right now. This one. All right, another question came in. So what's the potential here for birds hopping out of the nest when he's up there? Trying
Fortunately, in this situation, it's pretty low. We are quite certain because of the cameras. We know just when these birds hatched. We know they're right about 6 weeks age. They are not very likely to jump out of the nest at this age. This age, instinct is maybe back up a little, but mostly freeze. And so they won't fight much. They're going to hunker down to blend in with the nest. Glide softly to the ground. And then once they're on the ground, they're like, how did I get here? What do I do? And so we're able to get to them. So.
Thank you.
Put them back up in the tree at that point?
We'll go ahead and hold on to them, let them calm down a little bit. We'll do the full physical exam on them, make sure they didn't injure themselves in coming down. Go ahead and band them, and then get them back up.
Injectable at this point, like, where we microchip our pets. Is there anything like that you do?
There is. We don't do it. There's a little thing called a pit tag or a microtransponder type. Thing that, like you say, that you can use on your dogs or cats. We could do the same thing with these birds. Again, it's more expensive, and the leg tags work fine for them to know them. Unless we could have a fixed spot that we knew they were going to fly or get close enough to. Send us data about their heart rate and all the other good stuff. Yeah. It's amazing, the technology. It's just the money to make it happen.
Right.
Thank you. When you're flying,
See how many viewers there are. 936. Oh.
I don't understand this question to these people.
That's it. Oh, I don't know.
I show it to you, no?
Okay, so where are we? Where's Mike? What's happening up on top of the tree there, Michael?
He's now running a line over the nest
Okay.
so that he can actually start removing the eaglets one at a time
Mm-hmm.
and setting them down in a little pouch so they can be banded.
Mm-hmm.
But he's still got a little more work to do. As you can see, there's no branch that goes over the top of the nest, so he's actually trying to tie off here.
Mhm.
He's throwing a line over the top of the nest to that smaller branch, and then he's going to try and go across that line.
Okay. So technically, it's a little bit difficult.
This
since
is
the,
pretty
since
difficult.
the eagles have moved their.
It's really good
moving
he has
nest.
a long reach.
Yeah.
But he needs 2 free hands when he starts taking the eaglets out of the nest.
Right.
This is a challenging tree. Have you been able to see where the eagle cam is there?
I'm not sure if people can see it online or not. Unfortunately, I don't have. It doesn't allow me to zoom with the iPhone 5S, but
Well, the camera is what looks like a street light, just about 12 feet
Yep.
over from the nest.
yep, I think if
We were
people
able to
zoom in, they might
relocate
be
it
able to see
This
that.
past winter, to get a much
And that
better
other
view.
camera certainly is live streaming at this
Yeah.
point too. So
Also,
I think
the camera had been in a nearby tree, which was smaller and moved a lot more in the wind, so it kind of gets you nauseous when you're watching it. This is a much steadier mount for the camera.
You want to talk a little bit about Duke Farm?
Sure. While we're waiting for Mick Valent to start sending down eaglets, we should talk a little bit about Duke. To start sending down eaglets, we should talk a little bit about Duke Farms. At 2,742 acres, Duke Farms is one of the largest privately owned nature preserves in New Jersey. We've been very popular with visitors coming to see a lot of the habitat restoration and the species here. It's a great place to see wildlife. We've been designated an important birding area by the New Jersey Audubon Society. And in addition to bald eagles, we have ospreys, 9 different species of grassland birds, and I think about 200 species of birds overall. So it's become a great haven for wildlife and for educational activities. Part of our mission is really to become a learning center where people can come and learn more about nature, learn more about stewardship and how to do ecological restoration. We also have a community garden where we have 462 plots where residents of nearby communities can rent a plot and try their hand at organic gardening. We have an incubator farm where first-time farmers can make the conversion to organic agriculture. And we're also trying to demonstrate what we think is the inherent consistency with sustainable agriculture.
Sending in questions online.
She's answering quite a bit of it.
No, but he was a real
She had, of course, the eaglets have all moved over to the far side of the nest.
We're thinking he's right now he's tied into the one on the left. He's tied into one on the far right.
So in the other live stream, you can see him.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's
So
tied in
he's-
over the nest too.
He's tied in over the nest, but before he lets he's tied in over the nest, but before he unties from the left, he has to find something closer to the nest to tie into it. So that
Right,
he
that's
has
why
2
he's
points.
playing his face.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
two,
would definitely want 2 points.
I would do 3,
I probably
4.
would. Yeah, exactly. He's staying pretty still.
That's the thing about 6-week-old chicks. They're just really gonna lay there.
From Tom.
So Kathy, when do you expect these guys to fledge?
Yeah, so they have a ways to go.
Because the crew is on
So
it.
John, are people who are viewing,
Right,
are they doing
that's
both
one measurement.
simultaneously?
Yeah, probably.
That dark and
Yeah, they're both on our website, so I imagine they're doing both. Hey, Kathy, we had a quick question about the risk of nest abandonment after something like this. Evidently, there are other states where they're very concerned about doing this type of work, and I guess that's not an issue we've seen here so much.
Right, yeah. No, we've banded nests over the last 25 years, and eagles never abandon. They will not leave. Their sort of old myth is that birds can smell that humans have touched them, and that's not true. All birds have a very poor sense of smell, so they don't reject their chicks, and they'll never abandon them as long as they're there. In fact, after fledging, the eagles' adults will actually watch where their young go, and they'll continue to feed them wherever. If they land on the ground, they'll keep bringing food to them there on the ground. So they're very keyed into them. They're good parents, and there's nothing we can do to dissuade them.
Thank you.
Well, they can take the first flight around 12 weeks, but they tend to be still dependent on the adults for the next 2 months. Because they really have to learn to fly and learn how to catch their own food, and that takes a lot of skill. By the fall. Right. They They tend to make their first big flight because we know because we've used them
First thing they're still beaming.
They tend to make their first big flight in sometime in late August.
Big close up.
So he's getting tied into that. He's putting a belt around that one. He's
He doesn't carry the young yellows sometimes.
right. His main thing is he's reaching over the nest.
Can you step over here and describe it? Because we have the microphone on, so you can describe. Yeah. So if you look on, this is the stream that you can.
Oh,
Okay.
oh my goodness.
So do you want to explain what he had to do? He had to tie
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, this nest is challenging to get into because it's kind of out on a branch and not right next to the stem of the tree. So Mick has had to find a branch that goes across the nest that he can tie into, and that has helped him move closer to the nest. And now he's also
How many batteries gonna be?
making another point of attachment right at the base of the nest there.
That's all right.
So he needs to be tied in securely so that he has both hands free. He can reach for the chicks and then secure them and lower them down one at a time.
Which rope you want it on? Which rope you want it on? Okay. Was that the one I was pulling on?
The record for a banded eagle is 20.
John, if you're looking for more filler, I can still do some personal observations about the
In captivity, they
bear swamp nest and how they get involved in this.
That'd be great.
We got the good commercial for Duke Farms, we got the commercial for Conserve Wildlife Foundation.
they don't have to work for
Bag on.
Yeah.
What does the bag contain?
The bag has two hoods for putting over the eaglet's head. It puts them in the dark. It's very calming, and also vet wrap to secure their feet so that they don't hurt themselves or us.
So their talons are pretty strong at this age. They can.
Yeah, and what they'll do if you were to just put them in the bag without securing their feet, they could grab their own leg even though it's only one bird in the bag at a time, but it's better that they're secure and then they just lay down.
Thank you.
The other use for the boat hook, you're probably going to see, is so he's used it to, move ropes and stuff.
Still working. Sweet.
To herd the birds over?
Make them walk. Toward 'em.
Need some treats.
This one doesn't? Oh.
We're getting close.
You think it's the feed or the phone?
We're getting right back to me now.
Are you still on?
No, I'm not on. I asked her over the table.
So, Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about the Bear Swamp?
Sure.
First eagle, last remaining eagle nest in New Jersey.
The eagles have really made a dramatic comeback since the early 1980s. As I mentioned earlier, we were down to one last nest in Bear Swamp, and it was owned by a mining company. I was a young attorney at the Department of Environmental Protection at the time, and I was put in charge of acquiring the land that the eagle's nest was located on. And the land was owned by one mining company and leased to another mining company, so we tried a number of things to negotiate a deal, and we were not able to do it. We eventually ended up having to use the power of eminent domain to acquire the nest. And I remember going into court, Superior Court in Bridgeton in Cumberland County, and the attorney for the mining company challenged whether or not saving the last bald eagle's nest was a proper use, was a public use of eminent domain authority, and they made a motion to dismiss the case. And we asked the bench, and we brought with us pictures of the baby bald eagles that we had just banded. And I remember going up to the bench with the Deputy Attorney General and showing him the pictures of these baby bald eagles. And I knew that we were going to win the case when the judge looked at the pictures and he went, "Oh my God, they're so cute." So he said, "Okay, please," I want the attorneys to move back. And he looked at the attorney for the mining company and he said, "So let me get this straight. Your argument is that saving the symbol of our nation's freedom in its last location in New Jersey is not a public use?" And he said, "Yeah, essentially, Your Honor, that's my argument." He said, "Well, not in my court." Bangs his gavel, says, "Case dismissed," and the state got title to the... Here comes the first eagle coming down. I'm really impressed he was able to do that. You want to get a little closer? You got more than one hoodie stuff to say? Or? He does. Okay.
Perfect. Keep the hands like that. A little more room over that.
John, you can narrate this.
Hey, Nick.
Okay.
Get the bag on empty.
So what was that gauze you put around its tongue?
This is a product, I think this is actually Coban. It's just a self-adhesive wrap so that it'll keep the feet from causing any harm to us or the bird. When they kick up with those talons, they could easily snag us or themselves. And so Mick wraps them as they're going in the bag so that they don't grab themselves as they're coming down in the bag. Alright, got that. First thing we're going to do is take this wing from him. You'll put your hand right there on the shoulder. Very good. Alright. Alright. He's going to try to wiggle. Yeah, so he's got this. Once they get the wing behind them, they can turn. So if you can hold that like that. Perfect. Alright. I'll tell you what, we got somebody else who wants to hold feet. Super. Just put a hand right like that. You don't even have to control the feet, just so that the feet won't kick up. That's good. Okay, babe. Yeah, It's comforting to us, but I'm not sure they know what we're saying or trying to say. All right.
Using a big yard 6 weeks. And blew the fly feathers in.
So the blood sample is a good sample to have because it, even for healthy nests, it can show whatever exposure that eagles might have in the food chain through their food supply to environmental contaminants and heavy metals, pesticides, things like that. So even though DDT and PCBs have been illegal for many years, they're still actually found in the ecosystem, and especially in the aquatic ecosystems where eagles tend to hunt most of the time. So it's a good way of monitoring those contaminants in our environment.
So that blood is going to get shipped off to the lab then?
Well, we actually have quite an archived collection of eagle blood. It is expensive to have a lot of these tests done, so we hold on to some of it. We have some cooperating researchers who are doing some testing for free, including now some DNA testing, which is an interesting research project to look at the genetic heritage of eagles across the country. So we're participating in that as well. But as eagles expand through the state, we have them in more and more waterways, and so eagles can be a really good environmental indicator across the state now, whereas they used to be limited to South Jersey and Delaware Bay. Now we're able to actually compare eagles from North Jersey to South Jersey. So it's a great resource to have. As I said, we're looking at eagles that are successful because they have chicks, and then the other measure we can look at is as they become available, unhatched eggs, because sometimes it is the contaminant issue that causes an egg to not hatch. So that's another way of monitoring contaminants.
What are you measuring now?
This is it's one of the primaries. It's numbered the 8th primary because there are 10 of them, and this is the 3rd one, and this is the 8th primary, and that's 171 millimeters, and that gives us an indicator of each. What did I say? 171.
171.
Okay. Kathy, is this one of the larger chicks or the small one?
Just from watching the webcam, I'm not quite sure. I don't think it's the 3rd one. It's, they're all going to look pretty similar. Let me take a...
So what are you measuring right now?
All right, so we'll take 2 measurements of the leg. This is the tarsus leg measurement, and I need someone to record. Yeah. So there's 2 spaces for the tarsus, and the first measure is 13.3, and let's be just right, 17.1, And some of these measurements that when you put them all together, they'll give us a good indicator of the sex and the age of the chick. The females are larger, and females are larger even at this age of 6 weeks. The hallux claw is 35.2.
Yes, the leg.
Yeah. And we didn't do the bill, but no. So this bird is going to be D over 98. That's already written there, and it'll be on the left leg. Just indicate that it's on the bird's left leg. So this is obviously a big green color band. Thanks. This is not a standard band, but the color bands are used for being able to identify the bird from a distance. New Jersey is the only state in the East that's authorized to use green, so even if you don't see, aren't able to read the code itself, if you see a green banded eagle, you know it was banded in a New Jersey nest.
Hey, Kathy, this is one of the last D bands, so that
We are coming to the end of the D series, which means we've gone through 400 eagle bands, which is really cool.
Wow.
And the other band that Erica's putting on is a standard federal bird band, has an individual number, silver band, and as you can see, that is not something you're going to read from a distance. That's only readable when you have the bird in the hand. So that it's permanent marker.
have you have a number for that one?
C98 on the left side.
I mean, on the other one, on the public side?
Yeah. No, what, yeah,
That's okay.
that's right.
So we'll wrap those feet up again so that they're not going to hurt anybody. The bird won't hurt himself. I'm going to take a couple more measurements here. They don't like the sound of that. No, that wrap. So, hold on now, pal. Hold on. Okay. So this is the Coleman measurement. Coleman is 46.4. And then we'll do a bill depth, which is a good indicator of sex, the gender. But they do have to close their mouth for it. Am I good there? Okay. 31.4 on bill depth.
So do you know now what the sex is?
Well, I should. The 31 is a dividing line, but then also looking at the tarsus measurements, it's
Borderline.
It's borderline. The tarsus isn't really large. As we see the other birds, you'll see the difference in the size of those feet, and sometimes you just go, oh, that's a female, or oh, that's a male. These measurements are.
Like you're saying, you may not be able to get the third bird.
Is it moved back, out of reach?
Move back out of reach, and he's going to try and herd it back over, but he doesn't want to freak it out too much.
So that's probably the biggest one.
So we'll give you an empty bag.
Little yellow eye ring.
So, nice brown eyes.
So, most of it's down now.
Still, there's a lot of down under there.
And the feathers?
We're just getting covert feathers over it, but it's still very thick down the underneath. And there's a little bit of breakfast there, so I don't know if that's the eel or what they got, but there's breakfast. It's right there.
Still in the gobbling.
Step back and let you. I want to picture of you without. There we go. What's that?
I'm good.
Can we hold it?
Oh, come on. Sure. Got like 10 pictures.
Oh, cool. Yeah, another empty bag. So he has an empty nest up there to work with. That's his best chance for getting that bag.
This is brother or sister is in there.
He's panting a little bit. Okay, still hold him. Still hold him.
Who's gonna hold?
Well, he's been gasping a little bit.
Bigger flight feathers than I would have thought. It's amazing how quickly they grow.
They do. Everything happens fast once they start turning blue. This zipper doesn't close, so like it's good enough for him to sit in. Yeah, or if you want to get that one out and put it in there. Okay, we need a volunteer for the hold on the Go ahead. You want me to have the camera?
Yeah, well, can someone take pictures?
Yes.
First thing you. This looks like a little bit.
Bill through there?
Who's Bellator?
Pull it, the flat one, the straight one? Yeah, just pull it, yeah, pull it towards you. There you go.
Maybe that. Easy. Help do the turn over? Yep.
Got some talent sticking out. This was smaller than the first one we did, and the one still in the nest is the biggest. So this is number 3. Affectionately known as number 3.
This one will have its own sheet.
So I wonder what his chances of
Of getting.
It's not true. We're going to try that. We're just trying to coax it over.
And bands.
Oh,
Just
yes,
set it
I
up to
used
do
to.
this.
So this next sheet will be the data sheet.
Yeah.
D99. You're going to hold them on the side.
Well, this was in the shade when I chose this spot.
yeah.
Could I miss the weight?
3.9.
3.9. You write down anything about the first one?
You say 11 species here?
That wasn't filled in on the sheet.
They deal with pain differently than we do. I got a good touch.
Whatever.
A phlebotomist. No, I'm taking blood and they still don't react. You're very good. When I can stop it.
Yeah, one second.
Do you think that's true? They deal with pain differently. Yeah, they feel it, but they do respond differently. They are basically made to hide from pain, hide their pain so that nobody realizes that they're in trouble or weak.
Right.
They have most of the same neural receptors we have. It's quite possible they process it a little differently.
You see these the flight feathers are only out a few inches here on this bird. Because he was the third hatch, the youngest. So he has a longer way to go now with these flight feathers.
You think he is a male?
We'll see what the measurements say. When they're the third and they're the smallest, it's harder to tell just by looking.
What percentage of growth is left for them? This one, how much bigger will it get?
149 on the 8th primary, the wing.
The wing? 149?
Well,
I'm sorry, did you say 149?
yes.
Hey, Kathy, this is good to go back up, right? First one. Good to go back up.
What is it? Bird?
That's the first one.
Oh, he's got him.
Yeah.
That's the third one down, all right.
You want me to
Okay,
come in the shade
good.
for a little bit?
Yes. Yes. Yes, that bird can go up.
Hey, Nick, I'm going to put the first bird on, okay?
Sending them back up home.
Yeah. All right, bag on. Yeah. And back up.
There she goes.
This is that very dense down that keeps them warm. I'll give you two tarsus measurements. The first one's 12.1 and then 15.2. And the hallux claw is 31.3. Now him, we know he's the smallest, so, well, it doesn't matter. We're alternating legs so that eagle watchers can tell the difference between them.
So this one has the federal band on
Has the federal band on the right.
the right.
Or, no, on the
On the left.
sorry. That, you're going to make a note that that green band is D99, that'll be on the right leg. You okay?
Yep.
I'll put my
Just
blood
putting the blood away so the sun's
It's getting warmer.
How many people are doing it? There's 1,300 here.
You were in 2,600 before.
2,600.
Yours seems to be a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Can you straighten that out a little bit? Okay. Get a degree if possible.
Oh, you've got it.
I can't find it to do well straightening. Oh.
You're glowing, Kirsten.
What's that?
You're glowing.
Oh my goodness. No, he's a strong one.
He's small but strong, huh?
Yeah.
Good sign, right?
5,600 total.
Okay, so there are 5,600 people watching right now.
Wow. Wow.
That could include some schools, though.
Yeah, I'm sure it does.
Probably more.
My wife's school is going to be watching it today.
Probably
So.
multiple groups.
Yes.
You have-
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Would you stand up again?
Yeah.
That's right, this guy?
Different scale?
So what are you listening for?
5 kilos. I think the heaviest bird was 18.
So that must make this guy the one.
He's definitely number 3, and he's a male, so he's never gonna catch up to the
He's a male.
guys. Yeah. I have a feeling this is a female and the first person. Well, interesting. Yeah, 1 and 2 has the same thing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an advantage on the one couple person.
But he caught up nicely.
He looks great.
Yeah?
So what were you listening
Is
for
this for the
with the
cover of your
stethoscope?
autobiography?
Yeah, listening mostly for clarity of the heart and to make sure there aren't any arrhythmias or any kind of, just lost the word. But any kind of abnormalities. We have detected that now and then in the past, and we've correlated at least on 2 occasions where we've heard abnormal heartbeats in the young, like a murmur. We've ended up that chick has not fledged,
Oh,
so it's not an unusual thing in a large nest to have one that's got a weaker heart, one of the later birds, later in development. But
How did his sound?
he sounded great.
So he's not sure he can get that 3rd bird,
Okay.
so we just gave him.
Pretty calm.
Just rehydrating it a little bit.
Sure.
biggest one.
Yeah, yeah. So it's probably a female. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah,
when
we'll
the
see when we go on the
measurements
measurements. Say the biggest for last.
come in. Yeah.
Supporting him. He's got to expand his chest out to breathe.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Well, we still have another bird.
I'm good enough. I'm good enough.
All right, Louis.
We've already named him.
What did you name that one?
Louis.
Louis?
Louis.
All right. All right.
You gotta root for the rental.
Everybody does, huh? Okay. Let me just.
He was exactly 5 foot.
Yeah, it's not gonna
Too big for that. Love the fact that it measured the women in the top of the scale.
Okay, birds on. Okay.
Ron, look up. Oh, that's awesome.
So I guess the life never really gets much bigger since the bands are permanent.
Yeah, 6 weeks they're about really close to full size.
Okay.
And you see, they're not real tight fitting, so a little leeway there. All right. Hold on the shoulder there. That's it. There we go.
Is that what they want? Because it wasn't heavy. If everyone expected that it wasn't heavy. Okay.
I think it's okay.
You know what I mean? Like somebody served.
So now this one's the biggest. Other than that, he's going to get about how much bigger?
His body's not going to change a whole lot, but his wings, those flight feathers are going to almost quadruple in length. Wow. So he's short.
They do look short, yeah.
What turn it over with the...
This is a good, they calibrate it. They know they're exactly.
That one has gotten all the way to the far edge.
Yeah.
Well, number 3 is about 6 weeks.
She's got it on your phone?
1 and 2 weeks. 6 weeks plus 2 days.
good. We've got 11.
Not a Chevy way to start a Monday morning.
We got really good weather. I think it was raining or cold like it's been.
Woodsun's environmental class, I think his class started early. So I'm sure they
Yeah, that's why we need to get her on now. Because Claire's not doing everything. She needs to know stuff now.
I'm not sure. Second one's definitely now. First one, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Pretty late.
So, do you think this one's definitely a female? Not sure yet.
I remember a few years ago you had 3 and they were all males.
Down there, almost pays to hire somebody, right?
So do we take one male, one female, and one...
Coleman is 46.9. And I'm going to have to make him close his mouth here, but... I know, you're not going to want it.
Come on, close again. All right.
Okay. You can sort of see there. Oh dear.
Can I grow this feet?
Okay. We can. Why don't we do that when he's?
He's up.
Well, he's up. Yeah. He might have caught his breath by then.
Yeah. There's no way I was going to miss this opportunity for my daughter. I just said no. This is never going to be fun. It won't be just what's going to happen. What did Daddy say? Dora the Explorer, that's nice. My husband called me Dora the Explorer.
71.
So nice. It's my backpack.
I think that's the same as the first one.
Well, we probably much too much today.
Never had that happen.
Well, we haven't known that they had exactly the same day either.
Wow.
Look at these feet. Yeah, that's a female.
This is a female.
See those feet?
Look at those feet.
Yeah. That's your girl.
Female eagles are bigger than male eagles.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
14.2 is the first tarsal measurement. Yeah. Whenever you get to 18. 18.0 is the second tarsus. So yeah, just looking at the size of this, that says female.
Look at the size of that tower.
Yeah.
Look at those nails.
Hallux clause 35.1.
So you want federal on this one?
Sure.
Differentiate it from that.
So how close to full grown is this bird at this point?
They're certainly big. I mean, you can tell they're big. They have a lot of feather growth to go, and that pectoral muscle, that is the flight muscle, is not really developed at this point. So when they start doing those heavy wing exercises on the edge of the nest, that's when they're really starting to develop that muscle for flight.
But they look they're more than halfway full grown.
Yeah. They're I think, aren't they slightly heavier when they first fledge than adults?
Still at baby fat.
Baby fat, still have the muscle development to go, still have the feather hardening.
Yeah.
There's still blood in the feathers. I mean, that's how feathers grow. There's a blood supply.
Yeah, right now, a lot of their weight is in their feathers.
It's just amazing they can do that in 6 weeks.
Yes, it really is. 6 weeks going from, you know,
Coming out of an egg.
a little egg.
Yeah.
First E series.
First E, yay.
And it's a 0, 0, not a 0, 1.
Right.
What?
Yeah, they ran out of D's, and now they're E's.
But they're still green.
Versus
They'll stay green.
401.
Does every day have a different color? Does
No.
every day have a different color?
States can
Just like the
get
DEP
different
office
colors
building.
if they want a color band. We wanted to right from the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, the wings.
That's what they do.
Yeah, circulation.
Joanne, did you get a chance to hold them?
I would like one.
Yeah. Maybe if you go this way.
You want to move your, can I take these?
Can you hold this there? That's a great shot.
Just checking the heart rate for abnormalities, murmurs,
Yeah.
etc. How'd she come out?
She's good.
She's good.
Yeah,
Good.
nice, strong, steady heartbeat, somewhere around 240. That's
I
good.
reached around and took out a.
She had a little
Person's
breakfast.
lip,
Her
I hope.
breakfast is still sitting right here. That's the region they call a crop.
The breakfast is still in the crop getting
Yeah.
digested.
How big her legs are.
Wow.
Yellow now. Will that get less yellow around there now?
Actually, the corners will get a little less yellow, but her whole beak will turn yellow between around age 4.
Right, but I just wondered about, I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
realize
very-
that her whole lip
Yeah,
thing there was going on there.
that'll whiten up though as by the end of the summer. She's getting very. Right now, it's kind of a color cue for the adults for feeding. At this age, I'm not sure. You can see pretty far though. When they're really young, first couple of weeks, their eyes are a little bit hazy and cloudy. They don't see very far. They don't have any need to. But her eyes have cleared up. I'm sure she's got very good vision.
And they see in color, correct?
Yes. Yes, we
Joanne, let me
believe
take
so.
your camera.
And this is what we were talking about, the blood feathers. You can see how those feathers that are in sheath, they look like they're soda straws, and they're mostly filled with blood to supply those growing feathers. And so they actually weigh much more than a mature feather. So those feathers will lighten up, and more of her weight will be put on in the breast muscle when she starts exercising to fly. Though she's already wanting to exercise her wings.
Yeah, you want to
All
go,
right.
don't you, girlfriend?
Who's holding?
Let me take your camera.
Oh, would you?
Sure.
Yeah, right there.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, done. Where?
Right there.
Right there?
Yeah.
Like with both hands? Just like that?
Not too tight. You're mostly just supporting.
Don't hold from
Remember to
underneath?
use a baby.
Not from underneath?
Okay, Joanne, look over here a little bit.
Diane went to heaven? Oh my God. Oh my God.
Shake your
Heartbeat.
Oh yeah, okay. I see that. Thank you.
Yeah. From hunting for the last couple of hours, so it'll be a nice little treat, little peace offering.
Little peace offering for. Let's see the fish there. All right. Fish to the nest.
A couple of menhaden. It's a very oily fish. It's going to be very smelly.
Getting close to them, they smell a little bit like fish.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Nick, bag on.
Oh my goodness. Well, we hope that people who enjoy eagles in New Jersey will support the Endangered Species Program. You can drive with an eagle on your license plate. That supports the Endangered Species Program, the Conserve Wildlife license plates, and
You
the
can do the tax check-off next time you file your
tax
income tax
checkoff
return.
for wildlife in New Jersey.
Great success story, the bald eagle.
It is a great success story, and as you can tell, everybody's got smiles on their faces here. It's really nice to see a program like this making a huge difference.
We'll attach it over here.
So you're going to be sending up some fish?
We're going to send up, we brought 2 fish along because there are 3 chicks, and just by being here, we've prevented the adults from hunting for the last couple of hours. So it'll be a nice little treat, little peace offering.